Welcome to #Finance Master, a weekly show where Anders Leo Lindberg discusses the latest trends in finance and accounting with a global audience via LinkedIn audio. Recorded live, anyone can tune in and take part. Just raise your hand and share the stage. Will you join Anders next time? For now, kick back, relax, and enjoy this week's show.
Welcome to the weekly episode of the #Finance Master show. This week's topic is dispelling the dashboard revolution. And it's all based on an article I released this morning in my newsletter, Trends in Finance and Accounting, called The Limits of Data Visualization for the Finance Function. The format is simple. We are recording this episode to be released on the #Finance Master podcast. We just crossed 1,000 downloads past week, so it's definitely becoming a thing and racking up there. So thanks everyone for listening in and making this a great show. If you want to come up on stage to share a perspective or ask a question, you can raise your hand at any time and come up and join in on the discussion. But the format is simple. I'll review my thoughts from this morning and looking forward to seeing you engage as well. And if nothing else, I hope that you find value in today's show. So let's get started. I don't know about you, but when I worked in a finance function, it is a few years ago by now, but already then the dashboard revolution had started. Data was becoming available to everyone, and with Power BI or similar tools, everyone also had access to visualization tools and good business intelligence. So it basically meant that every single finance person almost in the company were creating their own dashboards to look at their specific area for their specific stakeholders. So going from having maybe a few standard views and dashboards to having thousands of dashboards in a company. That's what we call the dashboard revolution. And I'll talk today about whether that's a good thing or not. So, indeed, today, even the smallest businesses rely on data visualization techniques in one way or another. And while data visualization is certainly not a new discipline, consider, for example, the groundbreaking work in this field carried out by W.E.B. Du Bois as early as 1900, and it actually still looks extraordinarily modern today, it's indisputable that its use has become more widespread. So data visualization, or data viz if you want, has been one of the defining developments in the last couple of decades of the finance function. So from multinationals right down to owner, operator, shopkeepers, charts and graphs are part of the daily life of business, whether they're generated by bespoke in-house tools or commercial bookkeeping software, just to mention a few. The question I think we should try to answer today, and I'm really also curious to hear your perspectives on this, is has it become too much of a good thing? Data visualization is popular because it's useful. Hard numbers are not necessarily easy to parse for the average non-specialist stakeholder. And visualization makes it easier for these individuals to understand and derive that well-designed database practices can be game-changing. And they really can. And their impact is not in question. Visualizations from the basis of what we might call the dashboard resolution, which has brought the power of data within reach of individuals and functions that were previously completely divorced from it or divorced from data or insights. Data visualization is also at the heart of the leading business intelligence tools used across industry. And it's a must have for bespoke solutions. I mean, there's literally, okay, maybe there are some, but literally no tools today where there's not a visualization part of it as well. I mean, even think down to Excel, of course, also have visualization tools, although it requires some good skills to actually make it look nice. But any tool we use in finance or FP&A, they have a visualization part of it as well. So there might be a high likelihood that your organization places a premium on the availability of high quality data visualizations. The reason for this is simple. It helps people to understand what's going on. But data practices are developing, and while the dashboard revolution is certainly not over, it is reaching what we might call an inflection point. We are now deluged not only by data, but by data visualization. We are reaching the limits of data visualization as a tool. So if we go 5, 10 years back, everyone was talking about big data. maybe some still are today, but it's not a term I hear so much anymore. And it's because we've become better. I'm not saying we're there yet, but we've become better at the data management part. And of course, the natural next step was to build visualizations on top. And that's what we're seeing now with the explosion of dashboards all across companies. And I definitely argue that from a quantitative point of view, we have more than enough dashboards, probably have too many. So it's not the amount of dashboards, it's the quality and the what we are looking at. So I think we could probably cut away 90% of all dashboards in a company and zoom in on what's important, and we would be even better at driving performance management from these visualization tools. I'll just make a pause here to see if anyone has any thoughts to share and want to come up on stage to share a perspective or ask a question. We can see we have the first listener coming up here. Hey, Rochelle, welcome to the stage. Feel free to introduce yourself and share your perspective or ask a question.
Hi, good morning. I'm Rochelle from Digital IRC Consultancy. I would say that I agree with some of the points that you're making in terms of, I think it's a transfer of before we had a lot of data, but no way to visualize it. Now we have a lot of visualization tools, and it's becoming too much of a good thing can turn bad. But I just think it needs to be a balance of one, utilizing the data tools because they can't go, I don't think they can go away or should be taken away from any point of view because they do add value. Whether we are doing presentations or we are presenting information, they do help, I would say, executive make quicker decisions or see or fine tune or zero in on certain aspects of the business to make decisions. But sometimes you can be boggled down with how do I visualize the data or how do I present the data? And with all the different graphs and all the different colors, it can become a little distracting. And is determining what to focus on from a point of view and what information should share. And how do you wrangle the information into all of these data visualization tools and which ones are the better ones to you or use, or do you need to adopt a new one every time a new one comes out? That's just my thoughts on the entire discussion.
Thanks a lot for sharing those thoughts, Rochelle. And I was thinking about this, and I'd say, it's not the tool's fault. It's not the amount of data available's fault. It's not the user's fault either. It's the producer's fault, if anything. So it's the person or the function, probably mostly finance professional, producing all these dashboards that probably need to go about this in a different way. But the tools, I mean, they are great and they're doing lots of great things for our ability to visualize and actually manage performance in companies. But it's how we envision that we should use it. And it's on us to ensure that we don't go dashboard bonanza, but actually focus on what's important. So thanks for sharing those thoughts, Rochelle. Also, Troy, welcome to the stage. Feel free to introduce yourself and share your question or perspective.
Hi, Anders.
Hey,
Good
Troy.
morning. Good morning to your listeners. I have a question regarding using dashboards for presentation. What are your thoughts on using dashboards versus a PowerPoint tool for presentation?
That's a great question, Troy, and I think one that many people are struggling with. And I would say never start with the dashboard. The dashboard is good for, let's say, backing up arguments of taking different kind of actions or drilling down into a specific issue if stakeholders have questions. Where I would start is by outlining the situation that we're in and understanding what is the complication preventing us from performing at the level that we want. And then helping the audience understand what question or questions have I been looking at this month in order to understand how we can improve performance. And then you share, okay, the insights I have or the recommendation I have is to do XYZ. Now let me show you some insights into why I think this is the right course of action. And then using a dashboard as part of that argumentation might be a good way to go. Depends on how it's structured and the information in there, but never start with a dashboard.
Yeah, that's a good answer because the way I look at it personally, I tend to take the dashboard method to explore my data to find insights. And then once I have those insights, I then take that to PowerPoint and only the most important message that I want to share with my audience. they get into the PowerPoint. And with PowerPoint, you have like, especially if you're using Power BI, you have a lot more flexibilities and features to present your insights with PowerPoint. That's how I see it. So it's like dashboards are more for you explore your data. PowerPoint or any similar tool, it's mainly for explaining your data. Yeah.
Absolutely, Troy. I think we're fully aligned on that. So thanks for coming up and asking the question and sharing your perspective as well.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to continue a bit here, but there will be more chances to share thoughts or ask questions. So I think we can all agree that it's about quality, not quantity. I mean, any tool is only as good as the work that it facilitates. Or to put it another way, we should judge the tools we use and the processes we implement not by their capabilities, but by the value creation that they enable. Judged on these terms, it's clear that data visualization is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. I mean, finance professionals are concerned with supporting and enable better decision making and better real world outcomes for their organizations. There are many circumstances in which data visualization will help with this, but just as pages of numbers can be overwhelming for non finance stakeholders, so too are pages of charts and graphs. Given the importance of reporting for the average finance function, it's vital that we think about how we are presenting information. And we must recognize that the best way to do this will always be context specific. So, depending on the situation and the complications you're facing as a business, you will need to use visualization to your advantage. And if you created a dashboard, a standard dashboard, that one is never going to be able to account for any kind of context or situation that you're in. So, in practice, for many finance functions, this is likely to mean a scaling back of their reliance on traditional data visualization practices. In the average report aimed at C suite stakeholders, we might use high quality visualizations for perhaps three or four, maybe five max fundamental KPIs in order to provide a top line view that can easily be read and understood. Beyond that, while visualizations still have a role to play, they're not the only game in town. Instead, we should be thinking about new and more efficient ways to deliver information to different stakeholders and functions, mindful of the fact that their needs and expertise will vary. So, yes, data visualization tools will help, but there's definitely a lot more to it. I'm just going to open up once again, and I can see we have another one want to come on stage as well. So, if you have questions or perspectives to share, feel free to raise your hand and come up on stage. So, Rufai, welcome to the stage. Feel free to introduce yourself and share your perspective or question.
Thank you, Anders. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rufai Bishi. I currently work as financial reporting analysis for CBCL. I was listening to the last speaker. This is also coming from some of my recent experience with dashboards and visualization tools. I think if you really look at visualization to itself, it depends on the data analytics process that you on the stage that it's important to know when what this tool is going to do. For example, a visualization tool is not an analytical tool. Of course, you could start with, for example, I'm talking now about maybe non-financial reporting. You can leverage maybe a scatter diagram and do a regression behind it. But I don't want to go into that. My point is that, like the last speaker said, it works well when you want to, for example, in the data collection stage, and could help you, explore your data, zero down to identify what kind of data you're dealing with. And I think the other stage in which comes is the presentation of the result, which is pretty much what we've been using it to do in finance, presenting these reports. But I feel like dashboard also, and this is also based on the emerging request from the stakeholders and the business. I feel like a dashboard can also serve as a single source of truth. I'm talking about visualization too, for example. We know we've been battling with the problem of having to deal with multiple systems. If you do have like a reporting platform, which possibly, Power BI or Tableau, you could have all these other systems connect into it and can serve as one source where people go to, the business go to and get what they need. And from that, I think that is powerful because we are already seeing interest in non-financial reporting requests. For example, the ESG currently going on now. You could easily have your ERP where you have your financial systems, you have other kind of systems, maybe data collection in the field that relate to ESG requests. Those can come together and we'll be able to build powerful reporting from that. So I feel like Foster and could help us look at the data, present the idea, and serve as a single source of truth. That's just what I want to add from my experience.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, Rufa. And I completely agree on the single source of truth. I mean, this is something that finance have been talking about for 15, 20 years. And I think many companies are getting there, at least with the, let's say, more hardcore financial data. Then, of course, there's business data, which could be a bit more volatile and harder to get. But I think we're getting there, and having your dashboard serve as that single source of truth that all important stakeholders have access to, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think from my perspective, there's many ways you can go about designing dashboards and how you want to use these data visualization tools. If it was me, I would understand from the key stakeholders that I support what are the 3 to 5 most important KPIs that you're looking at as a business. And likely you will be knowing these and you'll be working on these anyway to try and improve them. Build your dashboard so it shows high level how we're performing on these 3 to 5 KPIs. Those should be available to business leaders to be able to pull that anytime, of course, depending on the frequency the data is updated, so they can always see how are they performing. You then need to follow this as well and be able to then either in the same dashboard or ideally in a different, more deep dashboard, be able to drill down into each of these 3 to 5 KPIs and figure out where do we have issues. And a bit like Troy was also mentioning, you then synthesize these issues into your presentation. But you would never stand there in front of your business leadership team and do the drill down unless something very specific pops up during the meeting. You would have done that beforehand because you need to know the numbers better than the people you present to. That's just a given. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into a lot of issues pretty fast. So design that top level dashboard. Ensure you have drill down capabilities, and then take it upon you to identify the issues, synthesize that back to the leadership team and say, here's where we're at. These are our main challenges. I've been exploring these 2 questions, and here's what I think we should do, or here's some further thoughts, insights, information that I need from you. And then you go from there. So for me, that's where dashboards need to really play a big role and how to use it. Because ultimately, the goal is, as I've explored previously, is to have that kind of self-service model augmented by the expertise of a business partner. So in this model, every stakeholder would have access to the data they need in a useful and comprehensible format on demand. This would be supported by business partners who can help stakeholders derive insight from that data and enable better outcomes through their cross-functional interdisciplinary knowledge. So for me, that's really how we need to work. I don't think that a dashboard can stand alone and just say, hey, you're the business leader. Here's your dashboard with your KPIs. Now you can make all the decisions you want. I think we still need to have a qualitative discussion around what does it mean and what do we do about it. And that's where we in finance need to act as a business partner. And we need to help business leaders focus and zoom in on what's important. Don't leave it to them to figure that out. That's on you. So we're at the end of the talk, and I'm just going to open up the Q&A or for more people to come on stage to share further perspectives. So if you have a question or want to share, then feel free to raise your hand and come on up. And of course, Troy, Rufa, and Uma, you're also welcome to share further perspectives.
Yes, Ander. So just 2 more points on this whole dashboarding and presentation. I think there is also a risk of using your dashboard as a primary means of presenting your data, because one thing can happen is your dashboard could stop working in the middle of a presentation, and that could be detrimental to your whole presentation. And the other thing is too, what we need to also consider is with all these tools that we have, our ability to communicate is something we need to focus on as well, because all the tools we have for dashboarding, Power BI, Tableau, what have you, they're just tools, right? And our ability to, our mindset, like figuring out what insights we should communicate to our leaders, that's where the science meets the art, right? And those are areas where I think we could focus on and really shine us. as finance leaders. Thanks.
You're absolutely right, Troy. I mean, we should be the facilitators of this process, not the dashboard. The dashboard is a helpful tool, but we should be the facilitators of this process, ensuring that business leaders understand their issues, our issues. We're in this together. And we might not always have the answer or recommendation about what to do, but then we should facilitate the process, the discussion, the brainstorming, call it what you want, to figure out how do we move forward from here. That's on us. The dashboard is not going to do this. The dashboard gives you information at best. So it will tell you what happened and potentially also why it happened. So XYZ customer or XYZ business area didn't perform or outperform. What are the underlying drivers of this? That's what you need to go and figure out by doing deep dives and talking to stakeholders. And it certainly won't, at least not in its current form, be making any kind of recommendations on what to do. So there's a huge role for human finance people to play in this space. And it's on us to ensure we use data visualization tools in the right way. And to that end, we need to dispel the dashboard revolution and peel it from where we are today. I mentioned 90% less earlier in today's show. And I really think maybe 90% is even too little. Start from scratch again and say, how would we do this over again? Right? You can do this anytime. I'm sure if you scrap 90% of your dashboards, no one would really feel anything. It's mind blowing to think about, but I'm sure it's pretty close to the truth. Any other questions or perspective to share? Feel free to raise your hand, come up on stage, or those on stage, feel free to unmute and share. And see, we have Steve coming up here. Hello, Steve. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Anders. Yeah, I think on your last point, one of the things that most of these apps or tools will have is a log of who ran them. Yeah, so you've got underlying metrics, and recognize that your visualizations are they're a living, breathing thing in a sense. They're a presentation product, and some of those will become redundant as the underlying issues that first appeared on them disappear and new ones come on, or the requirement for new ones manifests. So that becomes a way of, to your point, yeah, you've got a Pareto here. You've got probably 20% of the visualizations are the ones that deliver 80% of the insight. So how can you purge the others? And then you've got a target audience that will give you the feedback on where the areas of enhancements are to drive out even more insight and value.
Thanks for sharing, Stephen. I'm fully on board with this, right? And I think we've learned to manage data. We've learned to build the tools. We now need to learn to manage not the tools, but the dashboards as well. Otherwise, we'll keep drowning ourselves in new stuff to look at, and it's not necessarily very efficient or productive. And it certainly doesn't drive the right actions in the business. So clearly a lot to be done on the dashboard or data visualization agenda. I think we've come very far, and it's good. I mean, we've come far from where we were. Now we just need to take a few more steps to ensure we continue to do the right thing.
Just a last point, and I think you've touched on this already. For me, one key benefit I've seen from using dashboard or any of these visualization tool for reporting is that this supports this live data in sense that we could render reports looking at position as at close of business today or this moment. I know the way we do stuff in accounting, there's still things we need to core accounting system we still need to bring in and the live data. But for things like maybe we're supporting the sales department, their target projections, people could see live what how they're doing. And I think that's very powerful. It's not like we've not been having this in ERP systems, but most times the report do comes from the traditional report, which is a table, which is normal table list of rows and columns. But with visualization, key KPIs, like you've said, KPIs, which is like, for example, someone on the field, they could see on spot where they are. And I think that's powerful if we put that in the hands of the stakeholders, the business that we support. And that's just my last contribution.
Absolutely, and thanks for sharing, Rufa. Definitely, the time to insight becomes a lot shorter with these dashboard, or at least the time to information, knowing where we stand and why we stand here, is definitely being shortened by good data visualization tools. So, with that, we'll be closing down today's hashtag Finance Master show. We've been talking about dispelling the dashboard revolution as part of the overall series of the Data to Impact journey. We'll continue this series next week, talking about the insights, and really looking forward to that show as well. I want to thank Troy, Steve, Umar, and Rochelle for being on stage today and for making this show even better. thanks also for everyone listening in. And I truly hope to see you next week. And if you didn't catch the full talk today, you can catch it on the Finance Master podcast on all your favorite podcast channels later on in the year. So hopefully you can do that as well. Thanks a lot, everyone, and see you next week.
You've been listening to Finance Master, a weekly show recorded live on LinkedIn Audio. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the latest trends in finance and accounting. And why not join Anders every Thursday on LinkedIn to share your own views and appear in the next episode?